Hello and welcome everyone to How to Fall Back in Love with Your Content Career. I'm Isabel. I'm the Beacon's community manager. If you've been to a webinar with us before, thank you for coming back. We love doing these, and we're so excited to have all of you here with us today to learn from Hallee, who is a creator like many of you and has just so many really cool experiences in the growth and building of her content career that I'm super excited for her to get to share with you guys. So we're hanging out for just like a minute or two to let people come in, give everybody like 1 or 2 more minutes to get here and land on the right page before I turn it over to Hallee to introduce herself. A couple of housekeeping things. Over on the right-hand side of your screen, you have some icons. There's a chat, there's a question box. It's called Q&A. It's a little box with a question mark in it. If you have questions for Hallee during the presentation, please put them in the Q&A box. We try our best to keep up with questions that are asked in the chat directly, but it can move pretty quickly and things get like buried way scroll up the screen. So if you want the best chance of your question being answered in priority order, that question box is the place for them. Hi, Ben, and hi, Lindsay from Las Vegas. That's a great idea. If you're here and you're waiting, go ahead and drop in the chat, say hi from wherever you're calling in from. And I am here. Oh, Utah. That's awesome. I'm here in Minneapolis, where it has been like the least snowy winter we've ever had until last night when we got a big snowstorm. So I spent this morning shoveling my driveway, and I'm super excited to have a little bit of snow on the ground. Oh, wow, having somebody else from Las Vegas. Super cool. All right, it looks like we have a good number of people here. So I am going to turn it over to the star of the show that you are all really here to hear from. And everybody say a big welcome to Hallee, and I'm going to turn it over to you.
Awesome. Thank you so much for having me on. I'm very excited to have this conversation, especially with the theme of love going around this with Valentine's Day. I almost said Thanksgiving. Valentine's Day yesterday. So like Isabel said, my name is Hallee. I've been a creator since 2020. I'm going to get into my story a little bit more once we get into the presentation. But as she mentioned, we're talking today about falling in love with your content career or back in love with it if for some reason you may have lost your way. So some of the most common things that I hear, both as just a creator myself and from the consultant side, is how do I go viral? How do I get more followers? How do I increase these numbers? How do I get more views on my content? Or maybe why am I shadow banned? So today I really wanted to offer an alternative perspective to kind of what we're often told to do as creators. So feel free, like as I'm talking, drop your own thoughts in the chat, in the question box. And at the end, I think we're gonna have plenty of time for Q&A, like Isabel said.
Definitely.
So the first thing, if you're a creator, I am willing to bet that you've experienced burnout. If you've experienced burnout, if there's emojis, drop fire emojis in the chat or whatever. But burnout is the antithesis to being in love with your career as a content creator. And so I want to start by giving you guys kind of my experience with burnout and how it impacted my career. So like I said, I've been a creator since 2020 and an entrepreneur. And I went viral in early 2020, kind of randomly, soon after I graduated college. And it wasn't until mid-2020 when I started to gain followers from going viral, when I was doing comedy sketches playing the character Siri. And so this journey led me from going from 2,000 followers to 1 million in 6 months, which was like an absolutely crazy experience. And what I started doing during that time is I stopped my business, Hallee Maiden Design, which I actually started before I went viral. And I leaned completely into the content. I leaned into this persona that was working, this high energy version of myself that I was showing up as online, playing this character, because it was working. People were loving it. And, you know, to some degree, I was enjoying it. But by the end of 2022, I got to this point where I realized I was so incredibly burnt out. Like it wasn't I just needed a break. It was I don't want to be doing this anymore. Do I need to switch careers? What am I doing? Why am I doing this? I was lost at the end of the day. I was lost in my career. So in 2023, last year, I kind of leaned into my business as my main revenue stream and focused on content that was fulfilling. I wanted to fall back in love with what I was doing because it was a passion for me at one point in time. So what being lost in my career looked like for me, it was burnout. It was lack of purpose. It was not loving what I was putting out, not feeling aligned and connected with my content, with who I was, and ultimately not feeling fulfilled. That's what it was for me. But for you, it might be maybe you're stuck on why am I not going viral? Maybe you're early in the game and you don't know where to start. Maybe you're overwhelmed by the saturation in the content industry. You could be multi-passionate and have all these things you want to try doing. You might be asking yourself, what am I doing wrong? Lack of love for what you're doing. It could be all kinds of things, but I want you guys, this is a good moment to drop in the chat, like, are any of these things specifically something you've struggled with? If so, which ones? And if not, what is something that has led you to feeling lost in your career? I think, Isabel, interrupt me if you think now's a good time to talk about any of these things, or we can kind of circle back.
We have we have some people definitely echoing, feeling burned out. It's so easy to get there. So I think we can get into some of these questions more specifically in the Q&A, but if you guys have any questions related to this, let us know in the Q&A or upvote them. Like, are you early in the game and you kind of don't know where to start, or have you not been doing this for that long, but you already feel burned out or like a lack of love for what you're doing, even though this really is what you want to be doing. So we're excited to kind of get to know where you guys are, and then we'll get into some of that more specifically.
Yeah, I think on that point, Isabel, of like, maybe you're eager and you're in the beginning, you're like, this is what I want to be doing. It's a matter of staying in love. It's falling back in love, falling in love, staying in love.
Yeah, you have to work at the relationship.
It's a relationship. It really is, though. At the end of the day, it's a relationship you have with your career. So what I believe at my core is that we all have a purpose. And I think this is critically important as creators specifically, because we are trailblazers. We are idea generators, we're entrepreneurs, we're innovative, we're artists. We're going against the grain by doing that, by choosing this career path. So what we need is longevity. We need to be able to stay the course when we hit these points of burnout, to stick around long enough that this burnout doesn't take us out and completely kill the passion. And then the question is, how do we achieve longevity? And I believe that is exactly what we're talking about today, which is fulfillment in what you're doing and truly falling in love with your career, or falling back in love, or staying in love with your career. So the points that I want to, 3 main points I want to cover on this topic are thinking like an artist, developing your unique point of view, and then how this can all lead to this level of falling in love with your career.
Awesome.
So thinking like an artist, what exactly is that? If there's any artists in the chat, by the way, like people that already consider themselves artists, I'd be curious to hear from you. But I think it's important to start with the definition of an artist, because when you look it up, it's a person who creates art by using conscious skill and creative imagination. So I argue that content is art. Content is a medium through which you can express yourself in the same way that you can express yourself through painting, through a sculpture, through music, through writing. You can express yourself by creating content. But I don't think that all content is made in a artistic way. So what does it mean to create content in an artistic way? It's personal to you. It's an extension of you. If you are, philosophical in any way, you're sharing your thoughts and interpretations on something, or if you're an entrepreneur, you are, you're solving a problem. If you're a performer, you're sharing a talent or expressing yourself in a way that's never been seen before. you're ultimately creating an idea from scratch, and you're offering something to the world that might not exist yet, or something, or your own interpretation of something that does already exist. So the first thing you need to forget about when you are thinking like an artist, and I'll preface this by saying these things are important as a creator. We know that, but right now we're thinking like artists, okay? So in the context of thinking like an artist, these things can't matter, because what they'll do is they'll change the outcome. We got to forget about follower count. We got to forget about views. We got to forget about going viral. You got to forget about what you should be doing. Should's a bad word. We're blasted with information daily, being told, posting, pleasing the algorithm, posting 5 times a day, pleasing your audience. And then you also have to forget about what everyone else is doing, because instead you need to kind of shift your brain, and to think like an artist, you need to start thinking, what do you want to be sharing at your core? It sounds a little selfish up front, but it'll ultimately make you more authentic if you're creating from a place of who you really are. Your depth of impact, what is what you're making, how is what you're making going to impact someone? Are they going to look at it, chuckle, scroll, and forget about it? Or are they going to see it and they're going to be like, oh my gosh, like my life has changed, I'm going to go do that now? Those both would be counted as a view online. 2 things counted as a view. Do they carry equal weights? I don't know. That's kind of, up to you to decide, but you can also think about what's the inherent value of the content. A lot of times people will devalue their work. A lot of my friends, I was talking to someone the other day, people devalue their work because it doesn't go viral. But even the non-viral content can serve its purpose. Maybe you have a viral piece of content, people come to your page and then they see this video talking about who you are and what you do. And maybe that video didn't go viral, but because they came to your page and now they know you as a person, that video served its purpose. So what's the inherent value of the content you're sharing beyond the metrics? And then the last thing, to kind of think about is trailblazing and innovating, like I mentioned before. Are you sharing something completely new? So
I actually want to pop up a question from the Q&A right here, because we already got somebody who asked us, what are the best tips to get more views on your reels? And you might not think that Hallee is answering that question right now, but she actually is. And I just want to draw attention to that and highlight it. It's not a tip in the traditional sense of how to game the algorithm or getting more views, right? Because that's kind of the point that we're here to address today. And what I hear you saying in some of these points about trailblazing and what value does this content have, is another way to think about that is maybe what do you want to be known for? And I think when you are wondering how to get more views on your reels, is an answer to that question could be figure out what you want to be known for and then create content that speaks to that. And that's going to help drive your audience to find you.
Yeah. And I'll give you, on that point as well, I'll give you guys a pretty vulnerable example of that. So like I mentioned, I've had content go very viral. So, after having those types of metrics, it's hard to see things not perform to that same level. It makes things feel all downhill. So recently I documented the process of overcoming my fear of singing in front of people. And the video completely flopped, but every single person I know, personally, probably 15 people I personally know told me it was their favorite video I've ever created. Wow. So, you kind of have to weigh the value of views and like I said, purpose, finding what you're truly meant to be doing and what you want to be known for. To me, even though that video flopped, that was more fulfilling than a video that got 1 million views that I'm like, okay, why did that go viral?
For sure. And we acknowledge you guys are out here trying to start businesses, and somebody in Hallee's position with millions of followers, it has you have a little bit more privilege and flexibility to be able to have content flop sometimes.
Yeah.
So I just know that that is something that comes up for folks, and like we see you and we know that it's a struggle. And like I think the point is the same, you know, whether you have 100 or 100,000 or a million followers, which is like authentic content that speaks to, you know, real value and like who you really are. It might, that one video might have flopped for you, Hallee, but if you start making more content like that, like you'll see that performance improve.
Yeah, yeah, it takes practice to get a certain style of content down. Which is why, you know, for me, when I decided to go on the journey to leaning into the content I was passionate about making again, that's why I leaned back into my business that wasn't dependent on social media.
For sure.
That it, you know, that the money or the livelihood of it wasn't attached directly to the content. But yeah, I think that was a good add-on there to that point. So we might have kind of covered this one in that. Basically, what this analogy is, the painter analogy, and this is back onto the topic of thinking like an artist. If you think of a painter, their medium is painting. And presumably on a canvas, if you tell this person you have to make one painting every day, 2 paintings every single day, and every single one of those paintings needs to be a home run, bestseller, critically acclaimed, museum worthy painting. Is that realistic? It's not. And so if we're expecting our content, every single piece of content, to be this amazing next level thing, we're going to get stuck in the process of creating. So create without expectation, essentially. Let yourself discover as you are creating. And sometimes you'll make something and you'll be like, you know, that wasn't it. That was not it. You might learn you didn't like that. Or maybe you'll learn, like with my singing thing, I liked that. Maybe the execution wasn't on because it didn't resonate, but I liked it. So I know that. And now I know I can just get better at making that type of content, if that makes sense. So now we're on to our second point, developing your point of view. So how do we do this and apply this to our content? And I want to ask you guys this, and this is a good one to drop in the chat. When is the last time that you thought about why you're doing what you're doing? And you know, it could have been whenever. It could have been 10 minutes ago. It could have been this morning. Maybe you've never considered this. I don't know. I'm curious to know kind of where, you know, the landscape of everyone, you guys in this community. But I think that thinking about why is super important. So drop in the chat, when the last time you thought about why you want to be a creator? Why do you want to share what you're sharing? Or if you're a business owner, why do you want to start that business? And ultimately for me, it was that a year ago when I was burnt out, I didn't know why anymore. I didn't know this why. I lost it and I needed to rediscover it. So I didn't even have an answer at that time. You might not know why yet. So when it comes to developing your point of view, it's all about looking inward. What do you want to be doing? What do you want your career to look like? In a perfect world, what's your day-to-day? How does the process feel? How does the process of creating feel to you? And why is point of view important? It's important because it is the foundation of you as a creator. It's the foundation of your content creation career. It gives you a North Star or a compass to make decisions. As a creator, there are, like, when you think about money specifically, how are you going to make money as a creator? There are an infinite number, like there's so many ways, maybe not infinite, but you know, you can do affiliate, you can make a course, you can, you know, try to make revenue off of the platforms. There's so many different routes you can go. But if you have this foundation of who you are as a creator and the point of view that you have on life and the message that you're trying to share, you'll have a compass to kind of guide your decisions as you navigate. And so how the way that you achieve this, it's not like a 1 second, it's just the switch is gonna flip. It takes time, but reflection. Reflection is one of the number one most important practices I've developed as a creator. It's now a weekly non-negotiable for me. Like once a week, I reflect on the week. And the next slide, I have some prompts that I use and that you guys can use. But this, I can't stress enough how important reflecting has been. I've hired business coaches where they go into all of these like specific details of like doing this, doing that, all of these complexities. What I really just needed to do is reflect.
I want to shout out Christina in the chat who says she puts a Y next to every action item on her to-do list so that I'm moving intentionally. That is some next level reflection, and that's really amazing.
Yes, Y is like such an important part. Somewhere in here, we might not have covered it yet, but yes, why is one of the most important questions you can ask. I love that. That's really a good idea. So the journaling prompts, feel free to screenshot. I'll leave this up if anybody wants to screenshot these. These are some of the questions that I, use with coaching clients and also on myself to reroute, to do weekly reflections, monthly reflections, etc. And I've actually thought about turning this into a free download. So if anyone thinks that would be valuable, turning this into a free download, adding more to it, let me know. I'm open to hearing your guys' thoughts. Do you think enough time on here?
Yeah, and it'll be in the recording. So you can come back and revisit this if you didn't get them all written down or grab a screenshot yet.
Okay, so how does this all tie in to falling in love with our careers? I think that one of the biggest things is that there's a cost of not doing it. Like I said earlier, it's a journey and there's going to be ebbs and flows. It's like a no. So you're going to ebb and flow. And the cost to not finding this internal core, this foundation of what you're doing, is that you could lose your passion. The world might be missing your impact. If you have an idea that's in your head that you feel strongly about, but you're holding yourself back for one reason or another, then, the world's missing out on that idea. Another reason is that you could have creative constipation. I mentioned earlier, multi-passionate people. This happens so much with multi-passionate people because you have so many things you want to do. You're overwhelmed by the options. So a lot of times in this case, you end up doing nothing. And lastly, you might find yourself somewhere that you didn't intend to be. Kind of like what happened to me. I was just doing what was working. I didn't know why. And I found myself in this place where I'm like, I don't even want to do this anymore. Why am I here? What am I like? And that was part of my journey. But, my goal is to spare you guys that. So ultimately, I think there's 3 key takeaways if you guys take anything from this today. And it's, like we were saying, why? Remember why you started, or figure out why if you don't know why that is. And that single question can really change the course of your career and keep you intentional along the way. And letting yourself explore and play. It's supposed to be fun. Content, it can become rigid and stressful when we're trying to figure out, like, how do we go viral? How do we make this work? How do we please the algorithm? But how charismatic is it when you see somebody online, maybe it's your favorite creator, and they're just loving what they're doing. They're just enjoying it. To me, it's one of the most inspiring things to see. And those are always the people that I look up to. And then third being, it starts with you. It's very easy to get stuck on what are they doing? What should I be doing? What's everyone around me doing? But look inward. Let it start with you. And let that kind of drive you in your career. And I think that's ultimately what can bring us longevity as creators. Yes. It'd be hard to do, to look inward in this way, but I'll tell you personally, it's worth it for sure.
I was hoping you were going to use that word longevity, because I was thinking about when we first started talking about you doing this presentation for Beacons creators, and you used the word longevity then. And just kind of thinking about remembering why you started or figuring out why you started. One of the things that we love seeing in the Beacons community is how many creators are really in the business to bring value. And because you have a true passion and commitment to sharing your craft or, the word about whatever it is that you do and whatever, content you're in, there are creators who are, if you said, why did you start this? Your answer might be something more like to make money without having to work for somebody else, or to, have more flexibility and not have to go into work at an office. And I would just encourage you to explore the values behind those decisions. Those are not bad reasons to become a creator or to start being a content creator. And I think they do also speak to the things that matter to you, and what you're looking for in a lifestyle, which might have led you to content creation, can be something that also is a value you communicate through your content as well. So there's a place for everyone. And right now, the field of content creators is busy. It's crowded out there. And that word longevity, like what we really want to bring to all of you today, is the opportunity to still be here, like in 5 or 10 years, doing what you love, and like having this all figured out, as opposed to kind of trying to cash in on a trend, and then like burning out in the other sense of the word burnout, which is like, then it just kind of dries up and there's nothing else more there for you. So we want that longevity for all of you.
Yeah, and I want to emphasize one of the things you said with when you gave the example about maybe you want the freedom of your career. That's where it started for me. That's where my why started. And I think that our why can evolve. Like maybe it starts there, you start doing it, and then you're going to uncover more things as you go.
That's such a good point. I think it might be time for us to jump into some Q&A.
Yeah.
We have some great questions already in the Q&A box. And I'm going to start with some that have been asked live.
Okay. Do I need to pull that up on my end, or will?
Nope, you're good.
Okay, cool.
So Charmaine asked, how do you recover from burnout? How do you restart? And I'll let Hallee take that one mostly, but I do think we addressed that some, like with these kind of reflection points and the prompts to look at, kind of why you started.
Yeah, that's a really good question. And I would start by saying, take a breath. For the first 3 years of my content career, I was like running around. I felt like I was running around like a chicken with its head cut off, just like trying to keep up. But pause. It's hard to pause in this industry because it feels like you have to be posting every day, you have to be keeping up, you have to be doing this, that, and the other. And that's why I say it's so important to take a moment, reflect, take a week. And I recognize that not everybody has that ability, but if there's a way that you can build reflection into your routines, that you can be proactive, so that you're not at this point where you have to take a month off to be okay. If you can, kind of make it a marathon and not a sprint, and build these practices into your routine as you go, I think that can be really helpful to be proactive against burnout.
Yeah, great question. Let's see, which one do we want to take next? This is not a question, but it's a statement. Thinking like an artist is the easy part. Thinking like a business person makes me dizzy and nauseous. And I just want to say, we see you, Gray, who asked this question or posted this thought. And I think the question in there, is maybe about balance. Like if you've lost thinking like an artist because you feel like you have to think like a business person, how do you find that balance or get it back?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and it is a weird balance to have. I hear you on that, because thinking like an artist and thinking like a business owner are almost like these two different ways of existing. So yeah, like you said, Isabel, I completely agree that it's a matter of finding a balance between the two.
And that's kind of a good segue into this other question that I saw, which is when and how should we start to bring other people onto our business, like editing, designing, collaborating, or perhaps business management, so that you can just focus on the artistic side of things? Do you have anybody else who helps you run your business, or are you a one-woman show?
I don't have anyone full time. I've hired business coaches. I've worked with business coaches, you know. I've also worked with editors on a freelance basis. I've never hired anyone full time. I think what's really important behind doing that is making sure that you have a solid foundation of your business, and that you're gonna, assuming you're talking about hiring someone full time, you really want to make sure you have a solid foundation to your business and a steady income that you're going to be able to pay that person, because now they're relying on you. But what I've done is, and this has taught me a lot about working with people, because that's a whole other element to it, is communicating your vision to someone. Hiring someone, you know, freelancers, people for one-off projects, can be extremely valuable, because you're going to learn a lot of things about communicating your vision, how to just kind of manage the system. But one thing I've noticed is that hiring editors specifically has helped me to get a better grasp on my own systems with creating content, because when you're taking an idea from your head to a video, there's the scripting, there's the editing, there's the graphics you're going to add. You know, there's all these elements to the process where things can get really complicated. So having a solid foundation, to kind of wrap up this point, having a solid foundation and having things systematized so that you can pass them off to someone else in a clear way.
Yeah, those are great points. And I would say also, you probably shouldn't hire somebody full time if you've never outsourced or worked with a freelancer or had somebody help you on a one-off project basis. That's not like 100% of the time hard and fast rule, but generally, if you're thinking about, hiring somebody, that could be a really great way to test the waters.
Agreed.
I'd definitely consider it. Do I truly need to be posting multiple times a day across platforms to grow a large audience?
I don't think you do. I mean, it depends what type of content you're creating and what that core purpose is that you're going for. Do you have 5 things a day to say? Or are you just posting it to post it? Just to say I posted 5 times a day? Sometimes, everything is an art of finding the balance. Sometimes setting a goal like I have to post 2 times a day for the next 2 weeks can be really valuable, because it'll force you to get reps, and reps are going to increase your skills. And that's good. But if you're like, indefinitely, I have to post 5 times a day, you're going to get burnout. So check in with yourself. Set parameters, I would say, around that, and have a clear reason for why you choose to post 5 times a day, or maybe not 5, but multiple.
Yeah, I think growth it should be more like a side effect in this kind of value-based system of content creation.
Yeah.
We know that it's really important, and we know that, you can't make this your entire career unless you do grow. But if you wake up every day and you think, how am I going to grow my audience? I think you won't get as far as quickly as you will if you think, how can I present value in my content? Or like, what can I say that's really meaningful? Or what content can I make that's aligned with the type of creator and person that I want to be? So it's a little bit counterintuitive, but I think if you kind of lift some of this focus on growing a large audience, you might actually find yourself moving in that direction more quickly. And very much to what Hallee said, I had a great conversation with a creator a long time ago that I've never, ever forgotten. And she said, never get more dressed for your content creation than you want to have to get dressed every single day. Like if you are waking up and doing your hair and makeup and putting on a whole outfit, and like really stylizing yourself, that's what people are going to come to expect from you. And so you're going to have to wake up and like do that every single day in order to make content. And I think it's kind of a similar metaphor of like posting multiple times a day across platforms, don't think of it as something that you can just do for like a couple weeks until you have 100,000 followers and then stop, because you'll see those people disappear. So if you don't want to be posting multiple times a day on multiple platforms for a really long time, maybe don't start building your audience that way.
Yeah. Yeah, that is so true. And that's actually a pitfall I fell into a little bit, except I was showing up as this super high energy version of myself, which is fine. And I still make videos like that sometimes, but that's the only thing I was doing.
Yeah.
So it was like, I couldn't make content unless I was being like that in my videos.
Definitely. This is kind of related. I think it's a good segue. How do you encourage staying fresh in your content, or should that be something that you think of as a concern at all?
By fresh, do we mean like innovating, kind of trying new things?
That's how I interpret that. Christina, if you're here, let us know if that's right.
Yeah, okay. So taking it in that direction. Did you say how or how much?
Yeah, like how do you encourage staying fresh? I guess I see this as like, the question is, should I be worried about staying fresh in my content, or like, am I being too repetitive? Am I doing the same thing over and over again? Am I going to get in a rut?
Okay. I think that having an element of fresh in an ideal situation is key. I mean, that would be the ideal situation, is that you have this content that's working right here that you can pull from, that you can do, that you know is going to get you the metrics. And then over here, you have your experimenting with things, content, trying something new, seeing what works, seeing what doesn't. So in an ideal situation, you're kind of balancing the two. You're doing enough of this, but you're leaving room for innovating and trying something completely new.
This next one I want to answer, I think, is a really interesting question. If we're not a creator yet, i.e., I'm just selling an existing product or doing affiliate marketing, what do you recommend to boost exposure and views? I guess my question back to you, Erin, would be, if you're making content, even if it's just promoting other people's stuff, why do you feel like you're not a creator?
Yeah. Yeah, that's that's exactly what I would probably say to that too. Yeah, because once you set out on a journey and you start doing something, you are that thing. I think it was a graphic on Instagram the other day that really resonated with me. And it was like, aspiring artist, aspiring singer, aspiring whatever, but all the aspirings were chopped out, out. And I think there's so much truth to that. I mean, obviously you don't want to be like showing up somewhere with zero experience saying you're an expert, but if you're dancing, you're a dancer.
I would say too, if you are feeling like you're not a creator because you're just making sort of like basic videos, you're promoting things, maybe you're doing UGC or following briefs, start experimenting with putting a little bit more of your own personality into your content. That can be a stepping stone towards making videos that are more based on your own values and what you want to be as a creator. That's not quite as scary of a leap. And that can just be a sentence or a joke, or I mean, even something like letting your cat walk across the screen while you're, putting on your lip gloss or whatever you're doing can kind of infuse elements of yourself into your content.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
This is a question that I asked that I want to know the answer to. I thought of it when you were talking about your journey and how you started making content out of college. And I think it's really becoming more common for creators to experience success and start their own businesses without ever having worked a quote unquote traditional job. And like gone, the experience that people had for many decades, right? Of you graduate, you go into an office, you report to somebody else, you get coffee or make copies or stuff that nobody ever wanted to be doing, but you're kind of a representative of this first generation that's escaping that. And I'm curious if you have any thoughts on how that impacted your relationship to career and to your career and how you think about the work that you do, because, you're in a pretty interesting place, having like started this business and now reflecting on what it means to you and what you really want out of it and going forth with like a new coaching business. So, Yeah, I was just curious about that.
Yeah. So I kind of skipped over that part of my journey, just to kind of keep to the topic. But I did start freelancing right out of college. This was even, this wasn't related to going viral. This was completely separate, and it was before I went viral. So it wasn't like I had the viral proof to start my business. I decided I want to start my business first because I was freelancing. I had freelance graphic design clients because my major was marketing. My minor was graphic design. So anyways, I took the leap into business before that because I kind of had an existential crisis and realized I didn't want to do the thing I'd been working for my whole life. Working my way up the school system, and I was like, okay, I don't want to get a corporate job. So not to ramble too much, but I think your question was along the lines of how does this impact my relationship?
Yes.
To my career. And I would say I got enough experience in terms of internships to know what it could have been like to be in that typical job. But at the same time, I think that it has made my career something completely different. Sometimes in a way, I'm like struggling to articulate some of the things because not everybody has that same experience.
Yeah.
So it's been very, I think the best way to put it, because this is a little bit of a stump of a question, but I think the best way to put it is it's been like self-exploration for me. Like I have found myself as a person through my business and through creating.
Wow. That's an amazing answer. I'm glad I asked.
I'm going to get to it, but that's ultimately kind of what my relationship to it is.
Yeah. And this is a good question to go off of that too, which is what advice would you give your younger self about creating content today?
That is deep. That is deep. But I do have a good answer for that one. Early on, when I was making the series sketches, those ones were like guaranteed viral at the time. There were so many times I wanted to share my business because I was starting my business. I started that first and I felt like this is who I am, but now I'm this character that accidentally went viral and this is what I'm sharing because it's working. And I wasn't sharing my business. I wasn't sharing my thoughts around that side of me. So what I would tell myself is show those multiple sides of yourself. The biggest mistake I made was pigeonholing myself into trying to do one thing. As a multi-passionate person, like I need to be showing different sides of myself. So that is the one thing I would say to my past creator self.
Awesome. We do have a couple of other questions that we can get to if we have time, but before we start losing people close to the top of the hour here, I want to give you a chance, Hallee, to mention your offer and drop that link in the chat so that people have a chance to click on that.
Okay.
Do you want to say a little bit about it?
Yeah, I made a slide for it just so you guys can kind of visual. I called it a gift. I don't know if it's really considered that, but I opened up 10 spots from now until March. Is that March? Yeah, March 1st. For 45-minute one-on-one discovery calls. They're completely free. And they're limited to that time frame because of the recording. But I'm gonna, I have them going on periodically. So if you join my email list, I'll tell you guys when more open up if those 10 spots fill. But yeah, 45-minute one-on-one discovery call to kind of talk more about what we were talking about today, which is tapping into you and your creator journey and figuring out if the coaching program I have would be a good fit for you or something that could help you.
Yeah,
or
I just
way I can support you in your creator journey, like resource wise, connecting you with someone. It's kind of I guess that's why you call it discovery call.
This is a huge offer, guys. This is not every day that somebody with Hallee's experience and success, is willing to talk one-on-one with you about how you can grow in your career. So I really encourage you to use this link in the chat to book a discovery call with her. And check her out on her Beacons link, where you can see an example of a great Beacons page, and
Thank you.
get on her email list and make sure that you stay in touch with her as she builds out this coaching program. Also, the Beacons community is on Discord. So if you had fun in the chat here today and you like talking to other creators, and you want a chance to kind of engage, talk to us, talk to our team, talk to expert creators and other people, click this link at the bottom here to join the Discord, and we'll be excited to continue the conversation over there. There's a question that just came in. It says, how do we qualify for one? You're qualified. Here you are. Book a call. The link's in the chat.
Yeah. So that's kind of where this offer comes from, because usually if I'm talking to people online, I will qualify before I we'll hop on one of these calls. But for you guys, you're a shoo-in.
Nice. So back to questions for the last few minutes here for anybody who wants to keep hanging out with us. Any tips on finding or targeting your ideal audience?
Okay. So this is a very marketing brain question. It's in this sense, you have to it's really important to get super specific on who the person is. There's an exercise I've done, and that I also will give to people sometimes, where you make your person, like you give them a name, you think about where they shop, where are they showing up, what content do they watch on social media. You almost kind of get in the brain of that ideal person, and then you show up where those people are.
That's exactly what I would have said, pretty much. You have to know who they are, right? Because you can't find them if you don't know who you're looking for. And then you need to know where they are so that you can go and get them, and like make sure that you're also present in those spaces. So I think that's amazing advice as a starting point.
One more note on that topic. It's an iterative process. So for me, it's that specific thing I struggled with for so long. How do I figure out who my ideal person is? Because I didn't know. So you might have to say, okay, this is my ideal person. And then you get into it a little more and you're like, maybe that's not quite it. And so then you make a version 2 of your ideal person. Like, it's okay that stuff like that has to evolve over time, and you have to make multiple iterations of what you're trying to get to.
Definitely. What is your advice for smaller creators who are trying to get invited to events, or get like inbound requests for brand deals, kind of that like foot in the door of the creator economy industry?
So with, to start on the part of how to get inbound requests, and basing this on my personal experience, that will come from having successful content that's aligned with you. Because, if you're not creating content that's aligned with you, maybe you'll get inbound requests of things that are completely random and you're not going to want to promote. Or maybe if your content isn't performing a certain way, or you're not creating something that, you can kind of tell that you don't really want to be creating it, or maybe you're just making content to make content, people might not reach out to you. So you want to you want to be intentional about who you want to attract. And the same way with the ideal client, it's kind of similar. Knowing what types of companies you want to attract and what type of content would they want to see. But like we talked about today, having that foundation of why you're doing it is the most important thing.
Yeah. That's a tough one to answer, right? Everybody's trying to get their foot in the creator economy industry. Inbound requests are like the holy grail. I mean, good ones, not like, the ones that people with 100 followers get to promote Shein shorts or whatever. But it's just about like putting in that work and like being devoted to your craft. And it's another one, sort of like we were talking about, the growth is, it's an outcome, it's a side effect. It's not like the thing that you wake up and chase every day. And I think brand deals and invites and other things in the industry, obviously number one tip is networking, but networking, without like a quid pro quo kind of like let me take you to lunch so you'll invite me to an event. Like, be genuinely interested in people, and like want to get to know them and build out your network in this industry. uh, Come to Beacons events, join the Beacons community, and we can sort of help you guys build some of those connections. But
Yeah.
come from that authentic place, and like this kind of growth will be the outcome.
Yeah, and that genuine coming from that genuine place shows too, because when I'll say, like, now that I'm not trying to make as much viral content, right? Like, I haven't been posting that regularly as compared to what I was before. I get more opportunities now that I feel like I know what I want to be doing, and people can tell when you're passionate about something, and that if you're genuinely excited to be talking about something or doing something. And that will tie into what Isabel was saying about networking and it being a genuine connection, a genuine reason for connecting with that person.
For sure. All right, this is our last question in the question box. And I saved maybe the worst for last, or the hardest for last.
Worst or
um,
best?
I mean, it's a great question, but it's a tough one to answer, I think. What is the hardest lesson you had to learn in your content creation journey?
Hardest lesson. I would say that coming to find a balance between what I want to be creating and what other people want me to create, pleasing your audience. It's not an easy thing to look yourself in the mirror and be like, what I'm doing right now is not it. And to have that experience and to like really dive into that, thinking on that level of how do I show up as more of myself, and why is this not myself? That was probably the hardest thing.
Yeah. It's okay to have dark days.
Yeah,
You're
it is.
gonna, and I hope that some of the things that Hallee has shared here today, if you've been in that place or you are in that place of burnout and wondering, what am I doing here? Or how do I turn this into the career that I want, have been helpful to you in kind of some things you can put into practice and to take your career to the next level, and to like align with your values so that you can have that longevity and that fulfillment in this work that you were probably looking for, when you first came here. So thank you all so much who have hung in here with us for like almost an hour. We really appreciate you being here and sharing in the chat. Everybody say thank you to Hallee. Drop some claps or some waves.
You guys, it's awesome. I love talking about this stuff. So thank you guys, or thank you, Isabel, for having me on, and thank you guys for listening. And I also hope it helped.
And oh my gosh, I think it did for sure. Don't lose track of these links that are here in the chat. Come join us on Discord to continue the conversation. Make sure you go to Hallee Beacons page so that you can get on her email list and book that discovery call. I have a feeling they're going to go quickly. So if you want to be one of the 10 people who snags one from this meeting, make sure that you do that right away. And we will see you guys next time. We will be having another webinar at the end of the month. So stay tuned for emails and information about that. And with that, we will see you guys then. Have a great day, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.